We are at Wings Etc. in Cape Girardeau, and we are going to be talking football. And yes, 2 weeks from tomorrow is the first SEMO men's basketball game, exhibition against Fontbonne, and we're going to be talking Red Hawk hoops with the Red Hawks head coach, Brad Korn. Now, this is the bye week for the football team, so Coach Took is on the recruiting trail. So he'll rejoin us next week, but a chance to get everybody ready for the basketball season. We'll also talk some football. The number one wide receiver in the OVC, Johnny King, is here. We'll be talking with the Red Hawks All-Conference wideout, and also Trey Hodges, who had that game-changing interception right before halftime on Saturday in the big win over Tennessee Tech. Trey Hodges is going to join us a little bit later on in the show, but we want to remind you that in addition to the great award-winning jumbo wings here at Wings Etc., they have an entire menu, 70 or more items that are not their award-winning wings. They have a brand new burger menu, so certainly want to check that out when you come to Wings Etc. They have wrap subs, quesadillas, entree salads, smoked ribs, and, of course, their ultimate nachos as part of their appetizer lineup, their deep-fried pickle chips. The lunch specials here at Wings start at just $9.49. And now, with the advent of DoorDash, you can actually get wings delivered to wherever you are. Just download the DoorDash app, set up your account, take a couple of minutes, and you can have Wings Etc. delivered right to your doorstep. It is Wings Etc., good food, great times, home of the Red Hawks Coaches Show. And don't forget, Monday Night Football tonight, Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Las Vegas Raiders. You can watch it in high def right here at Wings Etc. Let's welcome in the head men's basketball coach at Southeast Missouri State, Brad Korn. Coach, how are things?
I'm doing well, Eric. How are you?
I am well. Does it seem like 2 weeks from tomorrow you are going to strap it up and take on Fontbonne?
You know what? I think by the time that these 2 weeks come up, it will be time to see somebody else. Today will be our 10th practice, so about a third of the way through the practice season. And I know our guys will be looking forward when that time comes to play against somebody else, get out there in front of the fans. You know, a year ago we didn't have any exhibition games. We did the scrimmages, the closed scrimmages. So I think it'll be a nice touch this year to be able to get out there early, get people excited because we do have a bunch of new faces on the roster. And so it'll be good for us to kind of go through that pregame warm-up, pregame routine as we get ready for the season.
So you have the option of doing the closed scrimmages, which appear to be top secret. You can never get stats. You can never get information about these scrimmages. What goes into the decision of playing a scrimmage versus an exhibition, or this year for you, 2 exhibition games?
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with gym availability for us.
Okay.
If the SMC is available, you don't want to just play. A year ago, we were going to have to play a game, honestly, around this time. So 12 practices in, we were going to have to play in order to be able to play in the Show Me Center. So it didn't make sense a year ago. I think a lot of times, too, depending upon your roster, what your roster may look like. If you think you've got a really good team, it's like maybe you want to play somebody in a close scrimmage, see what you look like early. And I just thought for our team, with a lot of the new faces, for us to be able to get out in our own floor and in front of our own fans and our own building, and I thought that was important for us to get a couple of those games because it's hard enough for us to get home games as it is. And I know everybody doesn't want to see non-Division I opponents, and we don't want to see a bunch of exhibition games, but at the same time, we are limited somewhat in what we can do and how we put the schedule together, but we can do the exhibitions. And I just thought after a year ago of not being home as much, to be able to get those first 2 at the beginning of the season was important with a lot of the new faces.
10 new players on the roster, and we will talk about the new players. 5 players coming back. The transfer portal has affected seemingly every team in Division I, but certainly the Ohio Valley Conference. How much do you look around at the other teams in the OVC and see, man, I don't recognize a lot of these guys? There are a lot of teams in our league that lost some of their top players to the transfer portal.
Yeah, and you look at there's only 3 returning players that were all conference a year ago in the conference.
Yeah, that's
and Philip Russell is one of those, and Chris Harris from 2 years ago is one of those. So when you look at it from that standpoint, I feel good about that for us, obviously. But it's a different world, it's a different landscape, and you also have, not only do you have transfers, but Tennessee Tech's best players now at Tennessee State. So you have interleague guys being on their best players being on another team inside the conference. So that's different. but at the same time, I think everybody's in the same position. You know, you look at the OVC. I believe we were talking about the other day in the office. I believe that there's going to be 6 OVC players from last year that are going to be starting in the SEC. And so it just goes to show you that's what makes March Madness so neat and cool, is because the parity is there. There's not that much of a gap from this guy to the next. It's all about the work that you put in. That's what's exciting about our roster. You know, you probably hear me say it a lot as we get into more of these shows and talking about the team, but we have an unproven roster with a lot to prove. And so I feel good about where we're at. Long way to go. Obviously, 20 more practices to go before we even open up on November 7th at South Florida. But our guys have been working. We haven't had to coach effort. You know, and so I feel as long as we continue to get healthy, get some guys back, I think we can cause some trouble and be what people think of us as from a year ago.
Redhawks finished 4th in the OVC last year. The top 2 teams, Murray State and Belmont, are gone. Morehead State is the only active member of the OVC that finished higher than the Redhawks did last year. And I looked at Morehead State roster, and you don't even recognize some of the names on. I mean, they were gutted by the transfer portal.
Yeah, they were, and you know, obviously not only gutted, but Player of the Year caliber guy in Janai Broom at the center position, which really hurts, you know, our level. Quite honestly, is you got a guy like that, a game changer, especially the way that they play defense. They hedge ball screens, which means they take their 5-man out on the court a little bit and try to shrink the floor and cut it off. So they'll look a little bit different. They got one of the best Division II, Division III, NAI, I can't remember what, guys in the country to transfer in. So, again, like we talked about earlier, everyone's roster is going to be, you know, they're going to come out the preseason rankings and all that stuff. And, you know, as coaches, we know that doesn't mean a whole lot. But, again, this year, probably more so than ever in the OVC, those things aren't going to mean anything just because of the roster turnover.
You've got 5 guys back from last year's team and 2 guys that have been all OVCs. You mentioned Philip Russell and Chris Harris. How are well, before we get into the individuals, I would say one of the overwhelming storylines for your team right now is you're not healthy, right?
No, we're not. We've got some guys out. We've kind of been hit by the injury bug, but again, hopefully it's getting out of the way now and we can be healthy once the season rolls around, because we did a challenging schedule. You know, it wasn't a very easy schedule, and we need to be full strength to compete at the level that we need to compete at and win games right away. So I think we'll get a couple more guys back this week. We'll start, again, it's a process, it's a slow build, but at the same time, you got to be ready to go because no one's going to feel sorry for us.
No.
You know, they don't care if you got 7, if you got 8, 12, whatever the case may be. You got to go and play. So we've got to get ready. We've got to get healthy. We're making progress towards that. So hopefully come November 7th, we'll be pretty close to full strength.
Does it look like any of these injuries are long-term injuries?
Probably one. We probably have another one where a guy will miss maybe the first 1 or 2 games, but hopefully be back ready to go after that. And not more so it's more so ready for competition as opposed to camp practice, if that makes sense. So
sure.
We'll probably have that guy back in the fold in practice, but just not ready for competition just yet. So probably after the first couple games, we'll be as about as full strength as we'll get all season, to be quite honest.
You know, one of the old sayings in basketball is the best thing about freshmen is they'll be sophomores. Philip Russell was a tremendous freshman a year ago. How is he looking, and do you expect Philip Russell to take that jump from freshman to sophomore year? You know, I don't know how much his ceiling is, but if last year was any indication, he can be a game-changing player.
Yeah, he can, and he has that ability. I think the thing that has been the most impressive about Philip since the season ended until now is it's all been about basketball with him in the offseason. So he's really making strides in that area. There's always room for improvement. No one is ever a finished product in anything, whether that's football, basketball, whatever you are as a college athlete, and even the pros. So he's continuing to get better. I opened up the gym yesterday morning for him. You know, so there he is on a Sunday off day, getting work in, and that's what he does. He loves basketball. You know, if there's one thing about Philip Russell, and that's the way he plays, the way he competes, is he loves basketball. I told him the other day, I don't know if he even knows what he would do if you took the game away from him. You know, some players are like, well, I'll just go do whatever. He's not that guy. He wouldn't know what to do. He'd be lost without the ball. So that you love that part of him. You love his competitive spirit. He's done a nice job in practice of getting other people involved. So I think you'll see his game kind of evolve. And he's a hard player, Eric, in the standpoint of there's really not a whole lot he can't do. And so now it's finding out where he makes the biggest impact for our team. And I think he can do that from a scoring standpoint. He can do it from an assisting standpoint. But also I think he can do it where we really have to make strides is from a defensive standpoint.
Chris Harris is back, and his final season, it seems like he has been at SEMO for about 7 or 8 years, but he is back, and I would think, that sense of urgency, knowing it's your final year, an opportunity to make a run potentially at an OVC championship, we're going to see a motivated Chris Harris.
Yeah, it's the best version of Chris that I've seen since I've been here. He's down 15 pounds from where he was a year ago. His body looks great. He's moving at a great pace right now. And again, like you said, he's been around. He's going to leave here. He already has his undergrad. He's going to leave here with a grad degree. 6 years in the program, 4 years. He's kind of an outlier, really. We talked about the portal and everything. And I appreciate Chris. It wasn't always easy. Last year was a down year for him, statistically, individually. But again, the year before that, he was preseason all-conference. And so he has that ability. He's a very good basketball player. He makes really good decisions. He can shoot. Now he's in the best shape that he's been in. He can move better than he ever has. And so I feel very confident in him. And as you mentioned, and you saw it a lot with Manny Patterson towards the end of last year, I think Chris can maybe have that whole season the way that Manny had the last month. And what I mean by that is Manny kind of, you alluded to it, Eric, you forget about all the other stuff and you just want to win. And I think you saw that with Manny a year ago, and he had that great month and a half finish to the season because it was just about winning. It was just about focusing on what I could control. And I think Chris has gotten to that point earlier. And so now I really look for him and Nate Johnson and Israel Barnes, our 3 seniors, to be able to kind of have those types of years to where now it's just about winnings, individual stats, all that other stuff doesn't necessarily matter as much. Let's win. Let's do something that hasn't been done here in a long time.
Nate Johnson, an experienced big man for you, and I know he had taken the next step. You really saw an evolution to his game, and all of a sudden he gets hurt. So injuries plagued Nate Johnson last year. How healthy is he, and where is his game compared to what you thought it was going to be last year?
Yeah, he looks, we had talked about it, where he was in that summer going into last year. He looked great. Body was great. He was moving. He was staying healthy. He, knock on wood, Eric, he's lost 15 pounds, and it's good weight. So he hasn't missed any practices. He's felt good. So I feel really confident with him. What I thought he could have gave us a year ago, we have 5 guys that are coming back, but Larson redshirted. Nate Johnson, I think, played in 8 games. Is all it was, and he didn't even play. He played in 1 conference game, or if I'm not mistaken, Murray State, and that was it. So you're really talking about 3 guys coming back from last year's team. So I think Nate, having not only being a senior, he also has his degree, but also 5th year getting that extra opportunity, and now it's like, okay, I've had other things taken away from me injury-wise, and now I think he's going to be more focused and driven than ever to have that great senior year because his season was cut short even a year ago.
So also, in addition to those guys that we just talked about, Dylan Branson, I know he's a little nicked up now, but he is all of a sudden a veteran on this team.
Yeah, and Dylan's always kind of been that veteran. He has a basketball mind. He's kind of that coach on the floor. Anytime I ask the guys to repeat something that we've said about our program or a play, Dylan's the first guy to respond because he knows the game. He understands the game. And so he's kind of got to be that voice. We pointed him out in film the other day. He has been banged up. He's missed practices. He'll probably miss some time here still coming up. But even in film on practice, he was over by the water cooler, and he was clapping and talking. And we need leadership. We need leadership. We need all those things in our program. And although he's only been here 2 years, it feels like, he's been here forever. And hopefully, as we talked about our program and building this program or where we want it to be in years 3, 4, and 5, a guy like Dylan has 3 years left here in this program. And so hopefully by the time he's a junior and a senior, we're talking about him like we're talking about Chris Harris. It's like, man, it seems like he's been here forever. And those are the types of guys you have to have in your program. And Dylan is not only basketball-wise, but, again, I keep saying it, but it's been a point of emphasis for us this whole summer. He's in great shape. And so we've really made a commitment to that. Our strength staff has done a phenomenal job with those guys. And we need all hands on deck, and Dylan is a very important piece to that, not only just with his basketball but also with his mind.
2 weeks from tomorrow, the first exhibition home men's basketball game at the Show Me Center versus Fontbonne. And with that in mind, we're talking with basketball coach Brad Korn. You talked about guys dropping weight, getting in really good shape. One guy that didn't need to drop weight is Adam Larson. who redshirted last year. He's I don't know, can we compare your body type similar to your body type, but you've been trying to put weight on Adam Larson. Tell us about that, and what kind of a role do you think Adam plays this year?
Yeah, Adam is, our strength coach, Danny Strom, came up to me last week or the week before and said, hey, Adam clips the 170 mark today. And I said, well, body weight or bench press? So but you got to give Adam credit. He's got a great attitude. He's just built in a way that, and I sympathize with him because I'm way tougher and stronger than him, Eric. But I sympathize with him because I was told the same things in college: put on weight, put on weight, put on weight, put on weight. And it's like, well, I'm trying, but it just doesn't happen. Genetically, some guys it just doesn't happen for. And you look at Adam and the way his frame is and the way that he's built, I don't know that he's ever going to put on a bunch of weight. I don't know if he'll ever reach 200 pounds, to be quite honest with you. But as long as you're tough and you're feisty, he's extremely athletic and he can really, really shoot. He can really shoot the basketball. So it was good for him to redshirt, to get acclimated, not just from a physicality standpoint, but just with everything that went on, especially his class. That senior class in high school that went through the pandemic they had their high school seasons kind of taken away, and now just to be thrown in the fire in college wasn't ready. He wasn't ready for that. But now I think just getting his feet wet in practices for a full year, and especially with our roster the way it is, just with injuries, he's going to have to play. And we've got to be smart on how we use him and to use his strengths and his attributes because he is very long and he's very athletic. He can really shoot.
I guess just in body type kind of reminds you of the kid at Gonzaga. His name is escaping me now.
Holmgren.
Yeah, Holmgren that went high in the draft, unfortunately got injured, but he could shoot the ball a little bit. Is Adam a guy that could be a shot blocker for you because of his length, and is he a guy that can step out and shoot three-pointers? I know everybody wants to fall in love with the three-pointer, but you said he's a good shooter.
Yeah, it's one of his biggest strengths is to be able to spread the floor. We led the league in threes last year. We led the league in threes, attempted threes made. But again, I didn't think that we were a live by, die by the three type of a team. We also led the league in free throw attempts. And so the floor was spaced. It created driving angles because we were a guard-dominant type of a team. Adam has that ability to stretch the floor no matter what position he's playing or wherever he is on the floor. You can call him a 7. Whether he's a point guard or a center or a 2 or a 3, you can call him whatever he is. His biggest strength is he's able to shoot the basketball. And so now if the floor is spaced and you have guys like Phillip Russell, Chris Harris, really good dynamic guard play, and they're kicking to him, Adam in the corner, either they have to stay out on Adam, which opens up the floor for Chris, or they shrink the floor, and that leaves Adam open out on the perimeter. And now he's able to use a shot fake. I mentioned he's very athletic. He doesn't need a bunch of dribbles to be effective. I'm not saying he's an NBA player, but you look at the NBA, you don't get to dribble a lot in the NBA.
Sure.
And Adam doesn't have to dribble a lot for us in order to be effective. His shot-making ability is what's going to get him on the floor. It's going to help us, but also it's going to set up other parts of his game as well to where now he can be not just a guy that stands in the corner and shoots. He can use his shot-making ability to set up the next part of his game.
I think it's really interesting because fans are always fascinated when there are 7-footers. You have 2 7-footers on your basketball team. David Idata, did I pronounce that right?
Yeah,
Idata. And Mason Handback, who's a freshman from Jackson, Tennessee. I know that is very intriguing for fans. Tell us about the 7-footers. Well, tell us about the 7-footers.
Yeah, Mason came to us just kind of on a whim. I remember you talked about Coach Toot going recruiting, and I'd seen Mason play. We were actually recruiting another young man in the summertime. He was on the same AAU team, and he didn't have much going on. Again, whether that's pandemic, he moved a couple different schools, and he just didn't have much. And his mother reached out, and we brought him up on an unofficial visit, and he decided to join the team. And I've been so pleased with him. I'm probably harder on him more than anybody, honestly, in practice.
Really?
Yeah, just because I see a bunch of potential in him. There's not guys like him out there walking around that can move the way that he can move. He's off the ground way better than I thought. And so it's just understanding what we're trying to say and to get him to play at a level. Again, we saw it last year. Early in the conference season at Tennessee State, we finished the game with Nana and Dylan playing the 5. And we saw it at Moorhead. Nana was playing the 5 and we were playing zone late in the season. So you need everybody. And so just because he's a freshman, just because he came to us late, I don't want to just stick him over there. I want to get him ready for the game because he may have to play November 7th. Who knows? Because he has ability, he has talent. if he sticks with it, I think he could be a nice piece and have a really cool story here at SEMO when it's all said and done. And then David, coming from the Netherlands, he's just a big old guy. He just looks, he looks like he's 35 years old. So he's just a huge kid. He stayed overseas, played with his national team. So we didn't really get to see him in the physical, outside of FaceTime and Zoom and all that stuff, until he showed up August 15th or 17th. And so he's been a pleasant surprise just because, as you said, the size. We don't get to see that as much here at our level. And I would say the thing about both of those guys, David and Mason, is the way that they're able to move at that size. They're not plotters. They don't just sit in the lane and takes them forever to get down the floor. They can change ends of the floor pretty quick for their size, so that's encouraging.
Oftentimes, especially at this level, with somebody is 6'10", 6'11", 7 feet, they're described oftentimes as a project. That seems to be the term that people like to throw on certain players. Do those guys fall into that category? Do you see guys that really have a chance to give you some minutes?
Yeah, I think both guys. I wouldn't say projects. I think they're ahead of that. I really do. David obviously is older, a little bit older, and Mason, I think you can. I think a project is you'd feel awful putting them in the game. You wouldn't want them anywhere near the basketball. They couldn't function. They're maybe a year, 2 years away. I don't feel that way about either one of those guys. Obviously you don't want to be solely dependent upon freshmen, especially at that position. I think the point guard and the center position are the two hardest positions to play and to learn, especially as freshmen, true freshmen. So I don't necessarily say we want to put everything in all our eggs in that basket, but at the same time, I don't think that they're anywhere near what I would consider a true project, or you kind of just threw something up against the wall and hope it stuck.
Evan Usher, who is from Hendersonville, Tennessee, a pretty highly touted recruit. You talked about him last season when you got him signed, but now you've got him here. You have seen him in action. Tell us a little bit about Evan Usher.
Yeah, Evan's a worker. He's a great young man. His mother's done a phenomenal job with him, and he's a very quiet, very unassuming kid. He can really shoot, but he's got a quiet edge to him. He's never disrespectful. He's never extroverted in that kind of a way, but he is tough. He is fiery. He can really shoot, like I said, and I've seen him get better from the time he got here in August till now. He's getting more and more comfortable. His process has been sped up now with some of the injuries that we've had, and you just never know. I never want to put a guy into a box and say, because you're a freshman or we have really good guard play, you can't play. And I think he's got the ability to play both. He's still learning the true point guard position, but now he can play off ball because he can shoot. So he's kind of in that 1-2 combo mode, and I've been impressed with the way he approaches everything. He approaches everything like a senior, not a freshman.
Josh Early is a transfer from Tulsa, and you've got some Division I transfers on this team. Josh Early, 6'7", 242, played obviously for the Tulsa Golden Hurricane. What can you tell us about him?
Josh is one of those guys. If he's healthy, 100%, has had a couple weeks of practice, he's a force. Josh is a very powerful guy. He's powerful around the rim. He's got great size. He gets off the ground well. I hope Josh can give us a solid 2 weeks of practice leading up to our first game, because I think he can really surprise some people. He didn't get to play last semester at Tulsa, so statistically, him and his Tulsa teammate Gavin on our team, they didn't have a lot of stats from Tulsa. So I think he could have a big year for us if he's healthy. That's a big question mark with him. But basketball ability, powerful, knows what he's doing around the rim, knows exactly who he is. He's not one of these guys that's 6'7", 2, whatever you said he was, out there trying to shoot a bunch of threes and do all that. He knows exactly what he is, and he enjoys what he is. So I want him to be able to get through multiple weeks of practice, because I think he could really, really help us.
Then you've got a transfer from Georgetown, former Vashon player Kobe Clark, 6'6", 180. And I think when Red Hawk fans hear, he came from a big program at Georgetown, then all of a sudden they kind of perk up.
Yeah, and again, another one of those guys. Really, all of our transfers, to be quite honest with you, don't have a bunch of stats. And Kobe's another one of those guys. He was injured a little bit at Georgetown, but he's won at every level he's been at. He won at Vashon. He won at Georgetown. His freshman year, they won the Big East tournament. if you remember that 2 years ago when they went on that run. So I think Kobe is one of those guys that the fans are really going to love. Just the way that he plays, the energy and the effort in which he plays. We weren't the best defensive team a year ago. I think Kobe single-handedly can change that for us.
Really? Impact defender.
I do, yeah. I challenge him all the time, and I really believe he should be in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year in the conference. I really feel that way about him, the way that he defends. Now, can we control some of that energy that he has on defense and not take himself out of plays and not have a bunch of fouls early? But the energy and the effort and the toughness and the way that he rebounds and defends, he could really help us, and he will really help us, Eric. But now, how much will other guys jump in? I think Israel Barnes is another one of those guys. I've seen Phillips defensive, so I know that we're going to be better defensively, and a big part of that is Kobe.
Israel Barnes, 6'4", 185. He is coming from Newman University. I'm sure some people say, wait, where? I don't know that I've heard from Newman University, but tell us about Israel Barnes.
Yeah, he's had a really interesting story. He went to Weber. Weber stayed out of high school. He started as a true freshman. So he was there his freshman and sophomore years. There were some things that went on there, whatever, not him, but coaching-wise, other players that they brought in. And so he transferred out. He went to Division II down in Texas, and that was when the pandemic hit. So then he went home, and then there was nothing going on. So Newman is in Wichita, Kansas, where he's from. They're in the MIAA conference, where Sam McMahon, our former assistant, was the head coach at Missouri Southern, that same conference. So very, very good basketball. One of the top Division II conferences in the country, and he averaged 18, 19 points a game at Newman a year ago. So he can score the ball, but he's not just a scorer. That's what his team asked him to do. They didn't win a ton of games, and so he had to kind of be that scorer guy for them. There's a lot of things that he can do on the floor, both ends. He's very tough. He's fast. He's athletic. He can give us some rebounding. You know how Nigel Russell a year ago gave us some rebounding at that guard position. Israel can do that for us. And he can score the ball. Obviously, if you get 19 a game and your team wasn't that great, you were at the top of the scouting report every single night. So to be able to still put up good numbers, I know that offensive side is there, but he brings a toughness and a physicality from that guard spot that we really need.
So is he going to be one of your better defenders then? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I've challenged him. I talk to Kobe a lot in practice, like, hey, I want you to try to be Defensive Player of the Year, but who else is going to join him? If we're trying to get guys to think that way. And I think Israel is one of those guys that he can have that mentality too, just the energy and the physicality and the toughness that he plays with. He can really help us.
All right, kind of going down the list here. Aquan Smart, sophomore, transfer from Florida International, 6'3", 175. How about Aquan Smart?
Yeah, Aquan is
Aquan,
yeah. He's kind of that wiry OVC guard that you've seen a lot over the years. He can do a lot of different things. He went to Maryland out of high school. He had a really, really nice summer, and went to Maryland out of high school. Coaching changed, things didn't go right. Transferred back. Went even further away from home, and then decided to get a little bit closer to home, coming back. So he's got a lot of tools, a lot of ability. Now it's just putting him in the best spots to use those tools. He's very smart. He's a smart basketball player. A lot of times we go over something one time, he may not get it, we correct it, and then the second time he gets it. So he's been coached. I think that's the other thing that people lose sight of in the portal is that Kobe Clark's been coached by Patrick Ewing. Quan Smart's been coached by Mark Turgeon and Jeremy Ballard down at FIU, and Gavin Elkamil and Josh Early. Those guys have been coached by Frank Haith for 2 years. So you're getting guys that have been coached. Now, whether or not you think they're a good coach or a bad coach, either way, they've been in a college program, in a college setting, in college games.
And they know what college basketball is all about.
Exactly.
Because when you're coming out of JUCO or you're coming out of high school, it's a big transition.
It is. And so that's the nice part about the portal is now the terminologies may be different, or how we want you to do something or how we do something might be different, but it doesn't take, to your point, a junior college kid or a high school kid, it may take months, may even take a year. The portal guys, it's maybe a week, maybe 3 practices, and now they get it and understand it. So that part has been nice, and Aquan's been that way for us.
Boy, and also with some of these guys that transfer, they understand nutrition. They understand the weight room because they've been exposed to it at the Division I level, which is, I understand it's separate from on-the-court basketball, but that is a big part of being a improving Division I player.
Yeah, and it just shortens that learning curve. They're just able to jump in right away. And like I said, it may be 1 or 2 days that they're not quite getting something, but it's going to be much faster from everything, from academics, to weight room, to practices, to making changes during timeouts. You know, that you've just been through that, and it's hard to put someone in those situations. You know, like Adam, he's going to hit his head somewhere along the line this season because he hasn't even been through it yet, to where the transfer guys, the portal guys, have been through it.
Josh Mitchell, who is a 6'8", 215-pound sophomore, Northeast Mississippi Community College, another tall, lanky athlete that gives you size, more size than you certainly had last year.
Yeah, he's very, very athletic. Josh Mitchell is very athletic. He has gotten better just from a discipline, more detailed standpoint, instead of just going out and playing and being just a guy that runs around and blocks shots and gets rebounds. You know, now being able to function in the half court in different spots on the floor, and to be able to not just sit behind the post and try to block a shot, but play post defense. And so a little bit more structure for him. And, you know, he's had ups and downs, like we talked about, just with the, you know, coming in from junior college, and we took him a little bit late. He was a qualifier out of high school, just didn't get a whole lot of attention. But we knew when we were putting the roster together, and you can, again, hate to keep talking about it, but it is the world that we live in. With the portal, is you can kind of go and maybe select or focus in more on what you absolutely need. And we knew we needed toughness, defense, and rebounding from those positions where we lacked it a year ago. And Josh really checks all those boxes. He works from Tupelo, Mississippi, so not too far down the road. Great family. He's one of those kids you enjoy. He's kind of he's that sponge, you know, that you can shape and mold, and really the best, his future, his best basketball is ahead of him.
So, in other words, what you're saying, very coachable player.
Yeah, and he, just like anybody, he has his moments. You know what I mean? Him and I've had some conversations. But you know, he's got a good heart. He plays hard. He likes to compete. He's not soft. You know, he's okay to mix it up around the rim, and he's a great athlete. He really can rebound and block shots, which is something that we needed.
Tevin Gowans, freshman, Hazelwood Central. He is from Florissant, and I guess a similar body type to Philip Russell.
Yeah, and maybe I won't get them two up here, and they can argue about who's taller. But Tevin's he's a little. The thing about Tevin is a competitor. He's just a scrappy. I've been impressed with him. So he was here this summer, Eric, but he had shoulder surgery. And so he wasn't able to go live. And even the first month of, you know, June, he was just kind of just at practice because he couldn't even, you know, I sympathize with him too, just going through that a year ago. But he's been a pleasant surprise. He's a winner. He's a competitor. He's low to the ground. He's very good defensively. You know, Hazelwood Central, Brandon Gilmore is the head coach there. And we've talked about Vashon and Kobe and Phil Russell, their head coach, Tony Irons at Vashon. But Brandon Gilmore is also very respected, well-known, good coach in that area. So he came in right away just with concepts, knowing how to play, knowing what to do defensively. He's a true point guard, which is, you know, again, we talked a little bit about Evan being able to play both those positions. But Tevin's just really crafty. He's low to the ground. I've been really impressed with him to this point.
Boy, do you like the fact, well, clearly you recruited these guys, but all of a sudden you went from we don't have a lot of size to, man, we've got a lot of size.
Yeah, I think you would be pretty impressed if our whole team just walked in here right now and just stood in front of you. You'd be like, whoa, okay. You guys that's a different looking team than you had a year ago. Now we just got to get healthy, put it together. And I think that a lot of the thing with our guys, and we talked about Mason and David necessarily being projects, and they're not. But you don't want to just have size so you look good in the layup lines. You know, you got to be able to go out there and play basketball, because a 6'7" guy that can get a whole lot done, like a Terry Taylor at Austin Peay a few years ago, you'd take that guy any day of the week over a 7-footer that can't play.
Sure.
So I think we have guys that can play. You know, they're not just guys on the roster because they're tall. They're not just on the roster because they're big. You know, they can play a little bit, and obviously we got to continue to get them better and strengthen their weaknesses. But roster-wise, top to bottom, given the situation that we were in, I think the staff did a phenomenal job of putting everything together. And again, who knows what it's going to look like, you know, come January, February in the OVC. But I do feel good about where we're at, and I think we've garnered some respect within the league in a short amount of time.
Can you fill it up from the perimeter like you could last year?
You know what? I think you look at certain guys. Like I thought the year before that we got here, Nigel didn't have a great three-point shooting season. In fact, it was not good at all.
Not good.
And so he kind of had a career year that last year. Nana had always been able to shoot the basketball really well. I thought DQ made huge strides from his freshman year till the time he left. So I think you look at those three guys, they had career years. Now, is that because they just had all three of them just happened to have an outlier career year from three? I don't think that's the case. I think when you look at our guys coming back, I think it was more of our system that allowed for them to have open looks. And I think when you look at our returning guys like Dylan Branson and Phillip Russell, and even Chris Harris to a degree, didn't shoot it great from three-point a year ago. I fully expect those guys to have better three-point percentages. We don't necessarily recruit a guy from the guard position that can't shoot. You know, maybe it's we talked about Adam, Phillip, Chris, Israel Barnes. Those guys can shoot. And anytime they shoot, I feel good that it's going to go in. So, again, I don't know that we'll necessarily be as we are what we are, and we'll play the way that we play. But again, I think our offense may take a little bit of a step down because I think our defense is going to take a couple steps up. And so I probably feel that it's going to be that way.
How about your schedule, Coach? You open at South Florida. You've got games at Evansville, so everyone will get exposed to the Ford Center. Games on the road at Bradley and a tournament in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Yeah, it's a challenging schedule. You know, it really is. You're at Mizzou. We're at Iowa. You mentioned South Florida and Bradley. So those are four tough road games. Fort Wayne coming into the Show Me Center, won 20 games a year ago.
SIU,
you know, I think they were picked second in the Missouri Valley. Arkansas State beat us at home a year ago. They won 20 games a year ago. So you've got, even in the outside of your road games, you've got 3-4 opponents there that have won 20 games and we're at the top of their conference. So it's a challenging schedule, but at the same time, they passed a rule that we could play more of the non-Division I games during the regular season, and I don't think that's why our players are here. You know, I don't necessarily think that's why I'm here. And so it was just one of those things, like, if we're going to play, let's play. You know, we didn't do anything in the pandemic either when we only had 5 non-conference games. We played Lipscomb twice. We didn't take any non-Division I's. We played Indiana State. So we'll always play people. My coaching friends tell me I'm done for playing that schedule because they're all about, you know, get wins. And I'm just more about let's get our team prepared and be the best team that we can be. Obviously, we want to win a bunch of games. You know, we're not trying to lose games. But we're also trying to prepare ourselves to win an OVC championship. You know, and I think our non-conference will help us do that. It's challenging, and we'll see each year it changes. And outside of recruiting, it's the hardest thing to put together. But again, I think we'll always challenge ourselves. We'll always play good opponents. I know we always want to get more teams at home, especially on Saturdays in the Show Me Center, and there's challenges with that as well. But feel good about the schedule. Again, it's a challenging one, but again, I think it's going to prepare us for OVC play.
Salukis will be in here on a Wednesday night, December 21st. That'll be the final non-conference game before heading to Southern Indiana, the first conference game of the year on December 29th. 2 weeks from tomorrow, Fontbonne at the Show Me Center. Can't wait to get it underway. I can't believe it's going to be here this quick. And then November 7th at South Florida in Tampa, Florida will be the season opener. Thanks so much for your time, Coach. We appreciate it. Get everybody healthy, and we'll talk before the game 2 weeks from tomorrow.
All right, that sounds good, Eric. Thank you.
All right, that is Coach Brad Korn. We're going to shift gears, and we're going to talk some Red Hawks football. All-conference wideout Johnny King, who had a big touchdown on Saturday, is going to join us when we come back. A little later, Trey Hodges, who had the game-changing interception against Tennessee Tech. Those guys will join us when we come back. We'll take a timeout and return. Red Hawks Coaches Show from Wings Etc. on SEMO ESPN.